Hello and welcome. I am Gimba Umar. Tonight, Super Falcons of Nigeria defeat Bayana-Bayana of South Africa to win the African Women's Cup of Nations title in Accra, Ghana for the 9th time. Death toll in the boat mishap in Taraba State rises to 4 as the state government resolves to review regulations on water transportation in the state. President Muhammadu Buhari arrives in Poland to join 29 heads of government for the opening of the Conference of the Parties on Climate Change, which kicks off on Monday. And the 41st President of the United States, George H.W. Bush, dies in his home in Houston, Texas, at the age of 94.
And on business news tonight, Central Bank of Nigeria forecast 1.9% growth for Nigeria's economy by fourth quarter 2018, sees inflation at 11.4% in 2019.
And on sports news, River Plate rejects CONMEBOL's decision for second leg of the Copa Libertadores final against neighbors and bitter rivals Boca Juniors to be played in Madrid.
We begin tonight with the Super Falcons' victory over South Africa's Bayana-Bayana in the Africa Women's Cup of Nations. The Nigerian team beat South Africa 4-3 on penalties in the finals played in Accra, Ghana this evening. Both sides cancelled each other out in the keenly contested encounter, and no goals were scored throughout the duration of the game. After extra time, though, the winner had to be decided on penalties. The Super Falcons of Nigeria scored 4 out of their 5 spot kicks to ensure that they successfully defend their title and remain the undisputed champions of the women's football in Africa.
Nigeria's title defense at the 2018 Africa Women's Cup of Nations began with a setback after the 1-0 loss to South Africa.
Another ball down to the far side again. It's been pushed back by Nali. It's still Nigeria looking for goal!
But the Super Falcons bounced back with a convincing 4-0 victory over Zambia's Chipolopolo in their next game.
Super Falcons have shown their class and power in this championship. 4-0 against Zambia.
Rivals Equatorial Guinea were also not spared, as coach Denabri's girls gave them a 6-0 thrashing.
Equatorial Guinea have been hit by 6 goals to 0.
The Falcons faced their biggest test in the semi-final against Cameroon, but they squeezed past their opponents 4-2 on penalties to book a place in the final and the FIFA Women's World Cup in 2019.
So I've made the semi-finals, and it is Nigeria in the finals again.
The final against fans' favourite South Africa lived up to expectation.
Uchendu, and she scores beautifully. But Lalo is down.
But the day belonged to Nigeria as the Falcons won 4-3 on penalties.
Are the 9th champions in this competition. History for Nigeria. 9 times champions. And the very first time an expatriate coach has picked them.
Truly, the Super Falcons are worthy African champions. But to make an impact at the FIFA Women's World Cup, preparations must now start in earnest.
Have dominated women's football the last 20 years.
The death toll in the boat mishap involving traders returning from Dampar Market to Ibi town in Ibi local government area of Taraba State has risen to 4. It was gathered that the incident occurred when a boat conveying the traders hit a tree in the middle of the river. Shortly after, another boat came to rescue the passengers but was overloaded and eventually capsized, leading to the deaths. While 62 persons are said to have been rescued after the incident, some others are reported missing.
There have been regulations, except that the people who are operating this business are not adhering to some of these rules laid down for the business. But now that it has become very ugly for us in the community, of course, we have to wake up to dust these rules and see where necessary that we can improve on them and implement them for the betterment of the people. I want to say that we will improve on these rules so that those supplying this water for their businesses here and there, they must adhere to these rules. Otherwise, we will stop them from doing this business, at least for the safety of our people.
5 communities of Newman local government area of Adamawa State have witnessed series of attacks by herdsmen are calling on the government to deploy security personnel to their area to enable them return to their ancestral homes. Well, according to them, life has become unbearable because they cannot return to their communities for fear of another invasion by the gunmen.
This is the road linking the riverine villages of Gong, Yanga, Boki, Nzumosu and Niga, sacked by herdsmen. These communities have become ghost villages. They are now a shadow of themselves. Some of the survivors describe the condition of the sacked communities.
As you can see now, all the houses have been destroyed and the people have no food. And even some of our people, as you can see, nobody here in this nobody in this village. There's nobody in this village. See this house, a big house like this has been destroyed by the Fulani herdsmen. We don't have food, and even some of the few animals that we have, they were taken away. Our farmlands have been destroyed by the Fulani. We don't have power or we don't have access to build our houses. We are requesting for help.
While some have relocated to nearby areas, about 5,000 persons, mostly the elderly, men, women and children, now live across the Nia River. They have abandoned farming because of the attacks and now resort to fishing as a means of livelihood. The churches are under lock and key, and other major activities have also been suspended. The people have erected a shelter which serves as a place of worship. The internally displaced persons lament the situation they find themselves and call on the government to intervene.
Now we cannot go back because no any security, no anything, and government did not come and do anything or to see us to make sure that they do something for us so that we'll go back. That's why we are here.
We are passing through difficulties here. If government do consider us as citizens of this nation, we need that help from the government.
What steps are the state government taking to assist these people?
At the security meeting, we've raised the issue of people who have been displaced, and we've given directive to all the administrators to inform government of all displaced persons' locations so that government can intervene immediately, secure them and ensure their safe return to their places of abode.
While the government authorities put machineries in place to ensure that these displaced persons return to their communities, the people will have no choice but to remain in their current location with the risk of being exposed to different health hazards in hope that help will come soon.
Nigeria is marking the 2018 World HIV/AIDS Day with a call on citizens to know their status. The National Agency for the Control of HIV and AIDS, NACA, as well as other development partners, including the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, the AHF, are leading a campaign on the need to scale up testing and treatment for people living with the virus in Nigeria. According to statistics from the United Nations Programme on HIV and AIDS, there is an estimated 3.1 million people living with the virus here in Nigeria.
Globally, an estimated 36.9 million people are living with HIV and AIDS, and 3.1 million of this global population is in Nigeria. Efforts to reduce HIV and AIDS prevalence in the country has led to several interventions, including government's target to put 90% of people living with the virus on treatment by the year 2020. In order to raise awareness on the urgent need for citizens to know their status, the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA, and development partners are holding this rally in Abuja. The emphasis here is on testing and treatment for HIV and AIDS as a way of controlling its spread.
There is indeed a large proportion of people who do not know their HIV status. And we're encouraging everyone to come forward to get tested and know your status.
People are afraid that they'll be labeled, they'll be discriminated against, if they come up to declare that they have it. And most other people, even like the rally we have today, you find people who think that if they come here and join in rallying, that it will look as if they have HIV and AIDS.
According to the United Nations Programme on HIV and AIDS, in 2017, Nigeria had a record of 210,000 new infections and 150,000 HIV and AIDS-related deaths. 28% of Nigeria's estimated 3.1 million people living with HIV and AIDS are children, just as mother-to-child transmission of the virus accounts for 90% of all new infections. This perhaps explains why the federal government is placing more emphasis on preventing mother-to-child transmission of the virus.
Only about half of our pregnant women access antenatal services, which means no matter how much we want to upscale HIV treatment, the biggest score we can have will be 50%. At the moment, about 40% of pregnant women access antenatal services, which means it's about 80% of those going to the antenatal care. The only way we can resolve this really would be to continue to work very closely with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and this will help us to also further strengthen antenatal care.
Currently, only 34% of the adult population and 26% of the children population living with HIV and AIDS in Nigeria are on treatment. The average cost of treatment per person living with HIV and AIDS in Nigeria is put at 47,885 naira per annum. This means it will require 153.2 billion naira to put the estimated 3.1 million people living with HIV and AIDS in Nigeria on treatment annually. Hence the urgent need for collaborative efforts to scale up local and international funding so that more people can be placed on treatment.
In the meantime, World Health AIDS Day and health workers across the country are marking the day by spreading an awareness of HIV and AIDS epidemic. Well, this next report takes a look at how the day is being marked in Lagos, Ogun, and Kwara states.
World AIDS Day takes place every year on the 1st of December, creating an opportunity for people to unite in the fight against HIV and to spread awareness about the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. In Lagos State, the State AIDS Control Agency, the Nigeria Institute of Medical Research, U.S. Consulate General's Office, the Civil Society for HIV/AIDS in Nigeria marked the day with an awareness walk which takes off from the Ikeja local government area office through the computer village and ends at the police college.
We should not rest on our horse until we take the scourge completely to a halt. And what it means is that there is an initiative by United Nations called 1990 Initiative. It means that all those that are living with HIV/AIDS in Lagos State, for example, 90% of them must know their status. And the second 90 means that those that are living with it that have been identified as 90%, they must be taking drugs. The third 90 means that 90 of those ones must be having what we call viral suppression, which means that the virus must not be detectable in their blood.
More people need to get tested and find out their HIV status, and they need to be made aware of the fact that they shouldn't be concerned about a stigma. HIV is something that people are able to live with. It's not a death sentence, and the more people that we can make aware of those facts, the closer we will get to reducing and eventually eliminating this pandemic.
In Ogun State, the walk is led by the wife of the state governor, accompanied by members of the spouses of the Ogun State Functionaries Association and the State Nigerian Medical Association.
In the past, it has been called an illness that has no cure. However, it's possible to maintain it. Now there's medication. Once you know your status and you're on the medication, it's like high blood pressure. People can have a fulfilled life, an extended life, live to a ripe age once they know their status and take proactive steps of taking the available medication.
Health workers take the awareness to markets and motor parks in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, where they encourage people to get tested.
The issue now is not about stigma. There's no stigma with HIV/AIDS again. It is something that is everywhere. But we want people to know their status so they can receive help. So that is why we have gone out today to let the old people in Ilorin to know. We started for the market, where we know people come there regularly on Saturday. Then we are still going to the park and going to other places to ensure that people get to know there is HIV/AIDS and that it's real.
World AIDS Day was initiated by the World Health Organization in 1988 and is the first ever Global Health Day.
In part two, after the break, Primate of the Anglican Church, Most Reverend Nicholas Oko, asked Nigerians to come out en masse to exercise their franchise in the 2019 general elections. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.